Most expansive and active GMRS network in the country. Your net control tonight is Atlanta 947 WQIR 514. My name is Julie.
This is Atlanta 946 WQIR 514. My name is Justin.
And I am WRWM 344 Blue Ridge 63. My name is Mike.
And Atlanta 750 WRMR 367. My name is Jeff.
On the net, you can talk about your day's activities, radio equipment, or anything you think we would like to hear. This is a family-based network, so we encourage you to get your family involved. Guest check-ins are welcome from anyone with a valid FCC call sign. Once the floor is open, it's permissible to address other members of the net by their name or tactical unit number. Your FCC call sign is only required when you sign in and when you sign out of the net. Also, you can tune into our YouTube channel and follow along, or even better, tune in after the net to watch your appearance on the network and hear how you sound to us right here in Studio Vanguard. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment so we know you were watching. These interactions mean the most to help our new channel grow. What's our topic tonight?
Well, I think this week we're going to talk about radio etiquette and, just how to behave on the air. We've got a lot of new users out there and folks that, are experiencing two-way radio. In some cases for the first time, in many cases folks that have come over from amateur radio, and things are just a little bit different here than in the amateur world. So we'll talk about some of those differences and some of the things that you should and should not do on the network.
That sounds awesome. All right. I think it might be time for Catch Up with Kate.
Somebody let off to Kate.
This is WRMR 367, Atlanta 751, Kate from high atop Mount Waleski, live in Studio C with this week's Catch Up with Kate. The following regional gatherings are an opportunity to meet with like-minded North Georgia GMRS Network members. It's a great way to meet new friends and associate a face with a voice for many who we hear over the air. These events are arranged by various members and cover a large portion of the network. If there's not a gathering near you, there could be. Anyone can find a place to meet and host a local gathering. The Chattanooga folks will gather for lunch on June 21st at Champy's in East Ridge, located at 6515 Ringgold Road. Hey, isn't that tomorrow? So pack it up and enjoy some good food and great people of the North Georgia GMRS community, the same folks you talk with on the radio. Thank you to our hosts Ronnie, Chat69, and Jim, Chat84. The Northeast Bunch will gather for lunch next Wednesday on June 26th at Roosters. Roosters is located at 89 Long Branch Road, Dahlonega, at the end of 400. And the West Side folks will gather for lunch at 11 a.m. at Taco Mac in Marietta, 2650 Dallas Highway, Suite 110. Be sure to email rabbithole@nggmrs.org to RSVP so that they can make sure you have a seat with the group. In other news, Mount Roosevelt is on the air. The brand new repeater will help fill in coverage gaps and provide better coverage in the Knoxville and Rockwood areas. Mount Roosevelt is a 700 machine with a PL of D131N. You can find all of the programming information and a complete list of North Georgia GMRS Network repeaters at NGGMRS.org. That's NGGMRS.org. We would like to thank the Roane County Amateur Radio Club for providing a home for the Mount Roosevelt repeater, and we'd like to welcome the folks from RCARC to North Georgia GMRS Network. Let me break. The next Skywarn Training Net will be on Tuesday, June 25th. Please have your computer handy so that you can follow along with the free training material. Ronnie keeps saying things like you can click on the link below to follow along, but then posts a ridiculous link. So please go to www.gobbledygook.com or ask Chat69 for the link to the training materials. Don't go to gobbledygook.com. We don't even know what that is. Or if you find out what it is, you can reach out to Justin. The Little Miss Radio Net was a huge success. We think we should do it again. Join Atlanta 255 on July 1st to discuss your plans to celebrate the 4th of July. We are looking forward to a dynamite discussion and hope all of the ladies of North Georgia GMRS Network tune in to join in on the fun and community this network has become. That's just about 2 weeks away. The next rabbit hole is coming up on Monday. We'll be talking about your EDC, Everyday Carry Lights, aka flashlights. You never know when the power will go out, or you have to troubleshoot under the desk in Vanguard looking for the issue or Jeff's stash of beef jerky. Let's talk about EDC lights and why you should carry one this Monday on The Rabbit Hole with David and Lisa. The North Georgia GMRS Network is happy to announce we will be working with the Pickens County Sheriff's Department once again this year for the annual Sheriff's Jeep Fest. The event starts Thursday, August 29th with the night ride, and it ends on Sunday, September 1st. North Georgia GMRS will be assisting with communications for the duration of the event. We are looking for volunteers who have Jeeps with GMRS radios to assist with reporting trail conditions throughout the weekend. We also have a need for non-Jeep volunteers for help with various tasks around the ground, such as working the information booth. If you can help with the event, please email jeepfest@NGGMRS.org. Many hands make light work, so the more volunteers we have, the better. So we hear a lot of comments from folks that they liked hearing about trail conditions, but they didn't want to tie up the channel to report things. There is a lot of time between reports, and that is the perfect time to call Net Control and tell us how your trail ride went. From dry trails and easy conditions to wet and wild, if you don't tell us about it, we can't share that information with others. Trail conditions change a lot over the weekend, and we'd like to make the best reports we can, but we can only do that when you call in and report what you see. Let me break. And be sure to tune in Friday night for the Friday at 9 Simplex Challenge. This Friday's Simplex exercise will focus on GMRS Simplex testing with discussion to follow. Early check-ins will start at 8 p.m. on the ball ground repeater. If you have any questions, please reach out to Dana, Atlanta 250, or Jonathan, Gainesville 58. That's all the condiments we can muster up for this week. If you have any questions, suggestions, or spicy announcements for us to catch up on, send me a note at kate@nggmrs.org. And please do your best to have them in by Tuesday at noon so we have time to prepare to get your announcement on the air. We are North Georgia GMRS Network. This is WRMR 367, Atlanta 751. Now back to Net Control.
Well, thank you, Kate and Sterling. I did notice the Sterling cameo there, two or three times.
She was in rare form.
Yes, yeah. That was not your smoke detector complaining of a low battery. That was Sterling in her true form. So I believe that your smoke detectors are okay. All right. Well, good stuff. Lots of announcements, and Mount Roosevelt on the air. That's very exciting stuff. Let's go and see if Julie has any tips.
All right. Well, this is WQIR 514, Atlanta 947. My name is Julie with this week's New User Tips and Operating Procedures segment. This week on the New User Tips and Operating Procedures, we'll talk about operating on a linked repeater network. One of the most common repeater functions is the tail squelch or courtesy tones. This is a feature repeater owners use to hold the repeater open for a short time in case a user's transmitted signal drops out momentarily. The repeater will continue to transmit during the dropout, or the courtesy tone will signal the end of a transmission. Both of these features can serve to indicate to a user that the repeater is alive and well. Both of these features, however, are absent on the North Georgia GMRS linked repeaters. Early in our linked repeater adventures, we found that any activity from the repeater after the linked traffic ended could be seen as new linked traffic message and would result in a cascade of kerchunks after each user's transmission. A kerchunk is a brief transmission without a message or an ID. Technically, kerchunking is illegal, and in practical terms, it's discouraged on the North Georgia GMRS network, as it serves no purpose. You cannot kerchunk the repeaters to see if they're alive, because the very moment you release the key on your radio, the repeater ends its transmission. So the kerchunker cannot hear the repeater activation. However, everyone else can. Let me break. Unlike most amateur repeaters, North Georgia GMRS linked repeaters have many, many people monitoring throughout the day, and kerchunking becomes a major annoyance on the network. It's a poor practice to be sure, and as I mentioned before, it's illegal. The FCC requires all GMRS transmissions be identified. One must also consider that a linked network takes some time to make all of the connections happen. When a linked repeater begins hearing traffic, it tells its nodes that it has a message. The node then tells the core that there's a message. The core then resends that message to all of the linked repeaters. It takes just a brief moment to turn on all of those connections. This is a pretty short period, but it will cut off the first part of what you say if you don't pause after you key the radio and before you begin speaking. Remember the early days of cell phones when we had to pay for minutes? No one is paying for GMRS minutes. Take your time and enjoy a slower pace. There's plenty of room on the air for all of us. Let me break. So, radio checks. All day long, every day, people are asking for radio checks. That's the correct way to be sure your radio and repeater are working. Accurate signal reports are how we can be sure all users have the best stations they can have. It also helps an operator know if improvements are needed. An honest assessment of signal quality in plain language is the best way to help our GMRS friends improve their radio presence and improve our enjoyment of family-friendly radio communications. At the same time, let's be sure and limit our radio checks. Just as kerchunking can be annoying, frequent radio checks can also be annoying. Make 1 or 2 checks, then engage in conversations rather than continuous and repeated radio checks. Anything more than this is excessive, and it's not very interesting to listen to. In fact, we've been told people turn off their radios because they get tired of hearing radio checks over and over. If your radio worked yesterday, it probably works today. If you have someone you'd like to call out to, well then, just do that. These are the practices that make us the best radio operators on the North Georgia GMRS network. Remember, if you have any questions or suggestions for new user tips and operating procedures, send me a note at julie@ngGMRS.org. We are North Georgia GMRS Network. This is WQIR 514, Atlanta 947. My name is Julie. Good night.
Well, thank you for that, Julie, and appreciate those tips. Good evening to you, and we'll see you next week on the air.
Sounds good.
All right, then.
Good night, guys.
All right, so at this time, I think we're going to go ahead and resume check-ins. So as we typically do, we'll go to Zello check-ins first. So this means if you're using a radio, this is not your turn. If there is a long pause between check-ins, it's because we're being sure that Zello users have the opportunity to get checked in. Sometimes that can be challenging, especially if they're being interrupted by a radio check-in. So at this time, we're taking Zello check-ins. If you check in on flagship or any other repeater, your check-in will be rejected. Zello check-ins only. Don't test me.
This is WRXI 755 Roosevelt 80. I will be checking Roosevelt 83 in by relay. He has tried numerous times and couldn't get through.
This is WRYZ 968 Randall in Bohol, Philippines, checking in and checking out on Zello. Have a great net, everyone.
I wonder what time it is in the Philippines right now for
I don't
Randall.
know.
This is
That's pretty cool.
WSBC 635 Zone 20 been checking in and checking out.
This is CW40 Robert from Nicholson, Georgia, checking in and out. Have a great night.
What was that CW1 just now?
40.
Thank you.
I think Rome 27, though. I think you already have them. I don't see him.
I wonder if he was in the YouTube chat and I missed him.
The Philippines are 12 hours ahead.
WRXM 962 Gainesville, Oakwood, checking in, checking out.
Who's that? Gainesville 58. Low. The bread man.
This is
Flagship. He doesn't get checked in.
WRUB 711 Atlanta 519.
No way, Gary.
Gary and Marietta checking in and
That's
out.
Gary. Damn it. Are you texting him?
Yep. I'm giving him fair warning. He's getting the horns.
All right, we've got a round of Zello check-ins right there. We've also got some YouTube check-ins that I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge. We have WRWB802 Larry is in Colorado checking in on YouTube. We have Chattanooga 204 Steve in Ringgold checking in on YouTube. WRUJ 544 Josh in Roanoke, Virginia checking in on YouTube. We have WSCB. Oh, I'm sorry. This is just Noonan 483. Randy in Sonoa is checking in on YouTube. Atlanta 514. Michael in Cartersville checking in on YouTube. And Atlanta 515 Jody also in Cartersville, a YouTube check-in. We heard Roosevelt 80 checking in by way of relay. Bill, Roosevelt 83 in Rockwood, in and out. And we heard Gainesville 100, Randall in the Philippines. That's a 12-hour time difference, according to the Google.
So his day's just starting over there.
Yeah, 12 hours ahead. So his tomorrow is just starting over there.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
That's pretty cool. Thanks for that check-in, and he's checked in every week for
he's very consistent
for a while from the Philippines. So glad to have you as part of the net. Also, we have Rome 27 Terry in Menlo is in tonight. We heard CW40 Robert in Nicholson in and out. Gainesville 58 Jonathan in Oakwood in and out, and one more YouTube check-in. We had Rome 12 Mark. In Rome is a YouTube check-in and out. Those are the check-ins we have at this time. At this time, we're going to continue check-ins from any repeater other than flagship. Net control standing by.
Yes. WRXI 755, Roosevelt 82.
82.
Jenny from Rockwood, checking in.
This is Dallas 20, WRKT 728, David in southwest Baldwin County. Check me in, and by way of relay, Dallas 21, Lisa, and Dallas 22, Seth, and Dallas 23, Belinda, all in and out. Also, Dallas 45, Robbie, Dallas 46, Casey, and Dallas 47, Brooke. They are all three in and out. Also in Paulding County.
A slew of check-ins.
Whole bunch of rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, what are you doing to me?
I don't know what I've done.
All right, David, are we going to have to make a rule for relay check-ins? Limit of 2?
6, 7,
3, 4?
Whiskey,
What's our limit?
Sugar David Henry 707, checking in and checking out.
What was that?
WSDH. But I missed the rest of it.
707?
Let's try that.
I don't hear his name.
This is
Flagship. He doesn't get in.
This is Blue Ridge 59, WSCU 353, checking in and checking out.
This is WSAP 350, Atlanta 136 in Covington, checking in and checking out. This is Student 31 WRCK 924, Georgia, checking in and out.
Did you get that? I didn't either.
We gotta go back to Cairns or something. This is way too hard to hear with that road. And if I turn it up anymore, it's gonna start raining.
I brought cans.
This is
They're in the car.
433 WRTS 814, checking in and checking out. Have a good evening.
I think it's Noonan 3-1, but he's breaking up bad.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to try to clear up a couple of check-ins here. We think we heard WSDH 707.
The call sign is correct, but we don't have a name or a location.
So if you could come back and confirm that the call sign is correct and give us a name and general location. We do take guest check-ins, so we're glad to have you here. But if you would please come back, just give us a first name and a general location, please.
This is a Whiskey Sugar David Henry 707. Mike in Commerce.
Mike in Commerce. Okay. All right, Mike, we've got you in the log tonight. Let me go back and acknowledge the rest of our check-in. So something to know, that if you checked in on the flagship repeater, we didn't record your check-in, and we did that on purpose. If you're going to check in on the flagship machine, you're going to have to wait for the flagship call-out. So let me go ahead and acknowledge what we have. We heard Roosevelt 82 Jenny in Rockwood check in tonight. We also heard Dallas 20 exceeding his limit of relays, but we're but we're going to take it anyway. David, Dallas 20 from Southwest Spalding County is in, and the following check-ins are in and out. We have Dallas 21 Lisa. We have Dallas 22 Seth, Dallas 23 Belinda, all in Southwest Spalding County. All are in and out. And we have Dallas 45 Robert, Dallas 46 Casey, and Dallas 47 Brooke, also in Southwest Spalding County, also in and out. That'll bring us to Gainesville 67 Mike in Commerce is okay, that's our WSDH 707.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Thank you for that check-in. And we have Atlanta 136 John in Covington is in and out. And did we clarify this one, Noonan 3-1, or we're still not sure?
It's still a rough copy.
It was a really rough copy. It barely made the repeater, but we think we heard Noonan 3-1, John in Fayetteville. So if that's incorrect, please come back and let us know. And last one we heard was Toccoa 3-3. Matt in Pickens, South Carolina is in and out. John, if that was you, would you come back and confirm that? And if it wasn't you, would that station come back and give us a call sign followed by attack number? Nice and loud, please. All right. I think about all I heard out of that was John in Fayetteville. So I think our check-in is correct.
Yeah.
But that was a tough copy. Real tough time getting. So you'll want to make some effort at making some improvements to your station so that in the future you can get in more reliably. But those are the check-ins we have at this time. At this time, we're going to take check-ins from any repeater anywhere, including the flagship machine. So, Mike, let's talk just for a brief moment. Why do we break up our check-ins the way that we do and tell people on flagship they have to wait till the last?
Well, flagship covers just an absolutely large amount of our footprint and has most of our users there. And so it generally has the most check-ins. So to give everyone else opportunities in other regions and of course on Zello, we try to carve out space just for them.
That is true. And another phenomenon of the flagship session of the check-ins is that's where the majority of the doubles come from.
Yeah.
That's where the majority of the poor copies and challenging copies come from, is off the flagship machine. So people step on one another and make it really, really tough to get people logged in. But moreover, by breaking up the sequence the way that we do, it gives our more distant users a good chance of getting in. Any time in the past that we've tried to rearrange this sequence to let the flagship users check in earlier has just not resulted in a good sequence of check-ins. So we hold off the flagship check-ins until last, and at this time we'll take check-ins from any repeater anywhere, including flagship net control. Standing by.
WROB 245, Atlanta 849, Pamela in Duluth, and by relay, Atlanta 848, Ernest in Duluth, both in and out.
This is Gainesville 43, WRXM 345, David in Auburn, Georgia.
Did that not pull correctly out of the log?
Didn't pull location. I wonder if that's where we were. There we go.
The cell didn't have a formula in it.
That might have been where John and I were trying.
This is.
It's been a while since we had 80 check-ins before we even started the show.
We haven't actually before. We've hit 80 at the last round of check-ins after the show. We haven't had, in the time I've been doing it, we haven't had 80.
WSBT 216, Blue Ridge 46, David Dahlonega, checking in, checking out.
This is.
Let's see if that other Blue Ridge station will come back.
It never was a Blue Ridge station.
There was one. He checked in on flagship.
This is Blue Ridge 59, WSCU 353, Wayne and Jasper. Apologies for the early check-in. Thank you for the clarification on the order. I hadn't caught that before. I didn't realize this area was so popular. It's unusual. Checking in, checking out. Thank you.
This is. WRBG 415, Atlanta 11, John in Canton. Please check me in and out.
This is
There he is.
WRBT 591, BR 549, Mike from Cherry Log. In and out, please, gentlemen. Thank you.
This is Chattanooga 19, WRZP 299, Jack in Chattanooga. Check me in and out, please. Thanks. Have a good night.
Atlanta 355 off YouTube.
This is Atlanta 170, WSAR 344, checking in and out. This is WSAL 368, Atlanta 263, Roger, Zello, checking in.
263.
This is WSAE 606, CW5, Cindy and Comer, checking in and checking out. Have a great day.
There's your wifey.
This is WRXD 340, David, visiting from Wichita, Kansas, here in the Cumming area.
I don't know if I got that. WRXV 580.
David incoming.
This is WRZL 542, Noonan 120, Carmine from Fayetteville, checking in.
Is it 346?
This is WRUB 711, Atlanta 519.
There he is.
Gary and Marietta, checking in and out.
Awesome. Thanks for playing along, Gary. All right, let me go ahead and break in right there. Mike, did we have any that we need to clarify? Do you think we got them?
I think we've got them, yeah.
So, all right, let me go ahead and acknowledge what we have. So we have a YouTube check-in from Mark, WSCL731, is that New York State?
From New York.
Fantastic. Thanks for hanging out with us, Mark. We have Atlanta 849, Pamela, and Atlanta 848, Ernest, both in Duluth. Both are in and out tonight. We have Gainesville 43, David in Auburn is in tonight. Blue Ridge 46, David in Dahlonega, in and out. Blue Ridge 59, Wayne in Jasper is in and out. Atlanta 11, John in Canton, also in and out. WRQD 950, Donnie in Clintwood, Virginia is a YouTube check-in. Blue Ridge 549, Mike up, Uncle Mike from up around Cherry Log is in and out tonight. Chattanooga 19, Jack in Chattanooga in and out. Atlanta 355, Damon is a YouTube check-in from Canton. Atlanta 170, Dalton in Cartersville is in and out. Atlanta 263, Rogers in Dunwoody is in tonight. CW5, Cindy in Comer is in and out. Blue Ridge 64, Melissa in Blue Ridge is a YouTube check-in tonight. We have a guest check-in from WRXD 340. David is visiting in the Cumming area. Glad to have you along tonight. From Wichita. That's cool. We also have Noonan 120 Carmine in Fayetteville is in tonight. In Atlanta 519, Gary in Marietta is in and out. Those are the check-ins we have at this time. How many of those were YouTube check-ins?
Oh, you would put me on the spot. Let's see. 4, 5, 11, 12. Give or take 12.
About a dozen of those are YouTube check-ins.
I think
maybe 13.
I think our log specialist needs to start putting a counter on that column as well.
It kind of looks that way. Yeah, that's an interesting number. And so, all right, so here's the thing. In my mind, a YouTube check-in is a very cool thing, and I want to include that in our log, but it seems like, it's the RF check-ins that really count. And because those are interactions, directly on the radio. And at the root of what we're doing, this is all about radio.
That's true.
So I am interested in the YouTube check-ins, and I hope that people will continue doing that. But also, I think that number needs to kind of be broken away from what our total check-in count is. So we have this is what the real participation is on the air with our group. And then these YouTube check-ins are also cool. But in any case,
I wonder if the Glad Dad can update our counter.
He's working on it right now, literally.
Look at that! Look at my sheet change in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where these green highlights came from, and I don't know if I did that or if they mean something I just haven't figured out. But
he'll tell us later.
Yeah, right. So I've got a bunch of green highlights in my log. Do you have that in yours?
I don't have. No.
So I think I've done something. So I don't know.
You broke it again?
Yeah, but maybe it's just on my screen. So,
well, hopefully by the end of the net, we'll be able to give a total count of chickens that are RF chickens and then YouTube chickens.
Oh yeah, yeah. The fried chickens and the microwave frozen chickens. Okay. Well, good stuff. All right. So tonight we're talking about radio etiquette, and so. The subject comes up because we have so many new folks that have come to the network, and this is a constant thing. We have a constantly growing roster, And new members come to the network every month. And so periodically we need to kind of talk a little bit about what's expected and how to behave on the air. Just as I have to break. I'll be right back. And you know what the typical protocols are for operating in a linked GMRS network environment. So first and foremost, one of the most important things that I think we need to convey to new users is that the nature of a linked repeater network is such that there are particular characteristics about the linking system we have to adapt to. And one of those characteristics is there's a bit of a time delay from when you engage your PTT until all of the repeaters are up and linked and ready to begin working. So that amount of time is probably in a neighborhood of a second. Maybe not even a full second, maybe 800 milliseconds, something like that. So what it is that when you key up your radio, that signal hits the repeater pretty much instantly. But then the repeater has to convey to the node that it has traffic to carry. Then the node has to make a network connection back to the core server. And that transaction takes a few milliseconds to occur. Then the core server has to turn around and pass that same message out to all of the nodes on all of the repeaters. So there's a new transaction that happens, a couple dozen times to activate all of the repeaters on the network. And that takes several milliseconds. So all in all, by the time the message gets received by the originating repeater, that message gets converted to digital in the PI and carried through the network to the core server. That message gets processed by the core server and then sent back out. And then that message gets processed by the nodes and converted back to analog. All of these things, all of these functions take a bit of time. Not very much, but it's not instant. And as such, we need to key the microphone. And when we key our radio, that starts this whole process in action. We need to pause briefly, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then begin our traffic. And if we can do that, then the beginning part of our message will always be included regardless of how we're communicating with the other party. So if you're all on the same repeater, then it's just like any other repeater where it begins working the moment you key the microphone. But as soon as you're communicating across the link network to somebody on a different distant repeater, then that time comes into play. So that's a great habit to get into, is to practice keying the microphone and then waiting briefly before you begin to speak. Let me break. Another artifact that kind of comes to, a linked repeater environment that is different sometimes than other repeater environments, particularly in the amateur radio community. Most amateur repeaters are, for the majority of the time, not linked. Many times, amateur radio repeaters they'll link a few repeaters for the duration of a net, but for the most part, they're unlinked. And so, as such, an amateur repeater may only have a small handful of people that listen to it throughout the day. On this network, we have, I would say, dozens of people who are listening day in and day out. You may not hear them on the air, you may not hear them respond, but there's a lot of people that are listening all the time. And so when we do things like kerchunk the repeater, it gets really annoying. And when you keep hearing your radio just open up and then squelch out over and over and over again throughout the day, that's one of the things that make us reach over and turn the radio off. And that's the last thing I want to see any of our network users feel like they need to do, is turn the radio off. And here in the last couple of weeks, we've had many messages come to us to tell us that this is getting ridiculous and I'm turning the radio off. And all right, so we've got a brand new repeater on the air. That's cool. But we don't need to radio check that repeater 18 times a day. That repeater was working just like it was yesterday. That repeater is there, and it's functioning, it's alive, and it's well. if you want to know if the repeater works because you're in a different spot than you were yesterday or an hour ago, we don't need to be coming on and asking for a repeater check 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 times a day. No, that is not okay to do. I understand the repeater's brand new. We'd like to know what its coverage area is. But if you don't have something conversational to say on the air, then don't. Just don't. We don't need countless radio checks over and over and over again. There's a lot of people that are listening on this network that are tired of hearing it. And it's exhausting, and it's as bad as a ka-chunk over and over again. We need to limit those constant, well, we need to end the constant radio checks. That's got to stop. And we need to be respectful and limit the number of radio checks that we do for any reason, for any period. Let me break. If you're coming on the air to have a conversation with someone, then that is exactly what we want to happen here. This is a conversational network. This is a family-oriented network. This is not technical radio. My radio is this and that and the other thing. Those things are all interesting things to talk about, but we are not. This is not a place where we have to be technically oriented to be able to operate a radio. So we're going to speak in very conversational tones. We're going to speak like we're having a conversation on the phone or across the dinner table. We don't need any jargon or lingo to carry on these conversations. We don't need to know that you're on base monitoring. If you want to tell us that you're at home, that's fine. But the jargon and the lingo doesn't really apply in GMRS radio. You can do that all you want to in amateur radio. That's a completely different environment. That's a more technically oriented environment. Requires demonstratable skills. Sorry about that. In order to participate, and that's fine there. But that's not what this is. GMRS radio is a very different thing, and we don't really need all of that technical jargon here. So we want to keep language very plain and very simple, and keep the technical terms to a minimum. Is that somebody blowing up the phone that I need to know about?
No, you're fine.
No,
Okay.
ignore it.
All right. All right.
You're not fired yet.
Well, sometimes those messages are relevant to what's being said, so I just was curious. All right. So what do I need to add here, Mike? What have I left out? Because I know there's 100 things we've talked about.
Yeah, we've tossed around a handful of different ideas for discussion tonight. I think you hit most of them.
Well,
all right.
I think it is relevant to bring up the fact that why we're trying to drill these points home. And why I'm saying this is because for those of you who were listening Saturday evening, there was a roundtable discussion with at times as many as 10 participants. There was no doubling of each other. There was no stepping on each other. There was no going out of order. If it's done properly and folks follow the rules, you can have a conversation literally just like at the dinner table where everybody gets to take a turn and nobody is monopolizing the network, because then there's space for other people to continue to join into the conversation. So
well, I think that's a great point. We should talk a little bit about what a roundtable is and how it's done, and when does a roundtable occur? What are there rules as to when we can do a roundtable? So these are all valid points, and I think that a roundtable is something I'd really like to see more of on the network, because it's a great way to have worthwhile conversation with a large group of people, and it's a great way to utilize the network and spend some time. Let's take a break. Spend some time with our friends and family on the air. So we'll get into the roundtable also, and but really the root of all of this is that when you come on the air, I want you to have a reason and a purpose to talk to somebody. You're going to ask them a question. You're going to pass on some information. You're going to talk about your weekend plans or something of that nature. But if all you have is how does my radio sound, Just keep it. Just keep it.
Wait until you have something to say.
Wait until you have something to say.
Yeah.
You know, I was curious about a radio install here recently. Brand new radio in a fairly new vehicle, and wondered how it performed. And I didn't ask for any radio checks. I came on the air and called out to specific individuals. I got answers to some. I didn't get answers to all. But I learned a lot about how that radio performed in just a handful of conversations. So don't need to do a radio check. You can just call out to somebody and talk about the coyotes and the chickens.
Yeah.
Or the foxes, but don't get them going about that.
We're not going to talk about the foxes.
Yeah, foxes. Yeah. Well, can you still get anything for fox pelt?
I don't know, but I'll let you know if I find out.
Okay. All right.
I think Michael just gets satisfaction from the fox pelt.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's going to keep it. Is that it?
It got yeah.
Going to hang it one on
it
the
got one of
side
my
of the chicken
chickens.
coop?
So yeah, that's what I do. Hang it up on the outside of the coop.
There we go. All right. So with that, should we kick things off, or do we have anything I missed?
I think we got it for the most part, and I'm sure we'll bring some things up along the way.
All right. Well, in terms of radio checks, let's go straight ahead to the biggest offender that we have, Atlanta 810, the Glad Dad. John, did you have any comments for the net tonight?
Well, good evening, Justin, Mike, Jeff, and the rest of the net. Justin, how am I sounding on this HT in the living room before I continue my conversation with you?
Your audio is good and clear, maybe a touch low, but that could be because of the air conditioning that's running directly over our heads. But your audio is clear and the carrier is clean. So continue.
Well, fantastic. I made sure I had a charged battery before I began this conversation with the net. Not that I'll take near as long as my good buddy Justin to talk, but we'll see how many PTT timers I hit. I don't really have anything on etiquette outside of the fact that I was very thrilled to have many conversations over the last several days with the family network here. But for those that do not know, my wife, Atlanta 811, and myself welcomed our third son, Eric, into the family on Friday evening, so almost a week ago. Let me break. So we were at the hospital on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and came home Monday evening, really. Made several trips between Dawsonville and Cumming in those days, and got on the radio quite a bit in my commute, and had several folks congratulate myself and my wife on the new life brought in. Wanted to let everybody know he is doing well. He's eating, I think, and he smiled when I said it, apparently. He is eating well, and, 3 boys. Speaking of eating well, they're going to eat me out of house and home, I'm sure of it. But other than that, just wanted to let everybody know that Eric was doing well. Victoria is doing great, and glad to be back to being able to participate on a Thursday night net.
Well, that's great news, John, and glad to hear that the Wolf Pack has grown to one more unit. So that's very cool. Do we have tactical unit numbers for all the kids now?
Well, we do not. So we have Atlanta 810 and a half. But I don't know. I may have to do. I was talking to Jeff about this maybe on Saturday. I've got 3 kids, so it may be Atlanta 810 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3.
Too many fractions.
And maybe that equals Atlanta 811 if you have 3/3. I don't know. We'll have to work those details out. We've got quite a bit of time before Atlanta 810 and 3/3 is on the radio. He's still learning how to cry and tell us he's hungry at this point.
Very good.
There was way too many fractions there.
Yeah, I prefer decimals.
Yeah,
so,
his other children are at decimals, so we can't throw in fractions now.
Yeah, I think decimal 5 should stand, and we'll just have to figure out where the rest of them play. So, yeah.
Well, I want to shift gears a little bit, and John won't say it, but I'm going to say it, that if folks hear John on the air doing network testing and tuning audio, please do not interrupt him. His job is much faster and smoother if he gets help when it's asked for. If people keep commenting in and try to interject what he's trying to do, only prolongs his work. And what John does is really amazing for this network, and his time is very valuable. So
sometimes we don't get very much of it.
Right. So if you hear John on the air testing and tuning repeaters and setting audio levels, please hold your traffic and only interject if he calls upon somebody from a specific repeater. So there's reasons for him doing and calling on people on certain repeaters, and by just throwing comments in there randomly where he doesn't need them is only consuming his time that we can't afford to waste.
You know, once upon a time, the network engineer that we had for the network was from Texas, and we would get fleeting moments of time, technical time from him to come in and set levels or make adjustments. And Atlanta 810 has been able to spend much more detailed and productive and targeted time at balancing audio levels across the network. And his doing that has just brought tremendous improvements to the network performance overall. And I just, you know, as Jeff is saying, I just would like for folks to kind of respect that. And if he's asking for traffic on Jersey and you're in Chattanooga, you know, it doesn't matter if you think he came in loud and clear. That's irrelevant to the task at hand. And it's truly not helpful. It seems like it is, and I know that your heart is that you're trying to provide information and help, but we offer instructions for a reason. Just like check-ins tonight. We asked for check-ins in a specific order, and right off the bat, we were getting check-ins out of order. And so that just takes a lot more time. It slows the whole process down. If we have to correct a check-in because we didn't get all of it because it got stepped on, or things are out of order, or we get confusion sometimes because we thought we heard something, but it didn't make sense because it came from RF instead of Zello. All of that has a reason, and we ask for check-ins in a particular order because we've learned over time that's the fastest way to do it. And when you have, how many check-ins do we have? 95 at this point?
Yeah.
Well over 80 of them are RF check-ins. To take that many check-ins takes time, and that time kind of consumes or eats away at the amount of time that we have to spend on the net. So we want the check-in process to go much faster, and if you'll follow the instructions and check in the order that we ask you to, and in the manner that we ask you to, it does make it faster. Let's break. So good stuff, and appreciate your efforts, John, and even tonight some of the corrections and fixes that you made in the log. I wonder if we need to go into the do not use log and make any corrections in there.
We probably should, so that
there's some broken cells in there.
Because that's what I duplicate off of every week to make the new log.
Yeah.
For the week, so we probably need to. He did get our YouTube counter up at the top. I don't know if you saw that yet.
I did not.
We had 13 YouTube check-ins, if I logged them right. I want to just real quick throw in something that you were talking about the instructions for check-ins. This will make my job easier if you all would help me out. I do the logging, so when you're calling in, I'm listening for your attack call sign. And the reason that we ask for it in order of your FCC call sign and then your tactical call sign, assuming that you're a member, is because I can miss the FCC part of it and not care. I'm not recording that. What I'm listening for is your tactical unit number. So I'm Blue Ridge 63 and you're Atlanta 946. That's the critical part that I need. And so that's why we ask for it in that order.
It gives the, if somebody quick keys, we should talk about quick keying also.
Yeah, we should.
If somebody quick keys and we lose the very first part of that transmission, then a lot of times that very first part, if you start with your TAC number, could be the region.
Yeah.
And all we hear is the number, but we don't know what region that is. So if you're checking in and you are, you're a Watkinsville CW TAC number, but all we hear is the number, we might put you in as a McDonough, as a Rome.
It becomes a guessing game.
Yeah,
I'm guessing, is it Atlanta?
So we're trying to figure that out. And while we're trying to figure that out, we missed the next 2 or 3 check-ins.
Yeah, that's right.
As we're back and forth. Did you hear that part, or did you? Or sometimes we're having to go to Zello and play things back. So all of these things are relevant to the whole process. That's why it's important that we follow the instruction.
That's right.
And go in the order.
There's a method to the madness.
There is some madness here, that's for sure. And there are methods as well. But we've done this long enough that we think that we have a pretty good process in place. And if you'll help us out with the details of that process and follow the instructions, that makes things go a lot smoother. When we have to back things out and fix stuff because it's out of order, people are checking in out of sequence, that slows us down. And when we've got over 80 RF check-ins like we have tonight, we're going to spend a lot of time on the air. And if you can help us save some of that time, we would all appreciate that. The other thing we see is that with these long nets like this is that the participation drops off at a certain point.
Yeah.
So once we get past about 9 o'clock, a lot of people that were planning on being in are no longer there. So those are some of the other reasons we should do our best to speak slowly and clearly and be nice and loud into your microphone so that if your signal is marginal, you can modulate through the noise and get your check-in heard. Let me break. So congratulations, John, and tell Victoria that we're proud to see those beautiful pictures of Eric, and we're looking forward to hearing all of the Wolf Pack on the air. John, did you have anything else for us?
Well, as it relates to following directions, the Do Not Use tab has been used by me. I have already updated everything that was already done in the prior log, so you guys should be good to go. I am going to go ahead and sign out. Victoria is currently holding the little guy, so I think she'll stay in and out, and I'm going to go ahead and sign, try to get some sleep before the next feed coming up. So Atlanta 810, WRNQ 863. Good evening, guys.
Good evening, John and Victoria, and it was great to hear you on the net tonight. So, as John mentioned, next on our list is Atlanta 811. Victoria is in and out tonight. Also, we have Atlanta 516. Ray in Canton is in and out. We heard Gainesville 417. William in Auburn is in and out. Chattanooga 60. Jason in Hickson in and out. And Atlanta 569. Merritt in Woodstock is in and out. That brings us next to Columbus 27. Joseph in Boston. Joseph, did you have any comments for the net tonight or any questions about radio etiquette?
I just wanted to say, as a noob to the whole deal here, I wish that I had known some of these things, the reasons behind them, the chunking and all that, when I had signed up. Not that it would deter me, but it would have made my communications a lot better. And then there's, this is kind of crazy, but I used to be in public safety, and it's really hard to switch from unit calling to unit I want to talk to the other way around, the way y'all do it. It's a little bit of a mind game in my head there.
Well, it can be, but the truth of the matter is that if you do make the call the other way around, it still kind of works. And for the longest time, that's how I played when I was new on North Georgia GMRS. I did it backwards, and it worked. People figured out that I was just doing it backwards, but they knew who I was calling, and I could have conversations, and everything was just fine. So that's one of the things that I appreciate the most about this network, is that although there are protocols and expected ways of operating, it's not that big a deal if you get something wrong. You're still conveying the message. You're still able to pass the communication. You're still able to reach the person you're trying to reach, and it's a small thing. The order in which you make the call. It's a bigger thing, the order in which you make the call when you're checking into the net, because as Mike pointed out, we have built that pattern so that we can identify, and sometimes we know the check-in by the voice. All right. Sometimes we've heard a check-in so many times. There are some voices that are very, very distinctive. And then there are other voices that are, we don't know who it is until we've heard enough of it to get it in a log. But there again, a lot of the newer users, after a period of time, we get to a place where we recognize that voice. And there's some folks that, for instance, Gainesville 417. If I went back through the logs, I'll bet I could probably count on one hand the number of nets that he's missed. He's probably the most consistent check-in we ever have. He's always in and out, but he is here over and over and over again like clockwork. And that becomes a distinctive voice to the place where, we've got him logged in and out before he even calls his tax sign.
Yeah.
Because we just recognize that voice. And that'll become true with many of the new users as well as time goes on. But Joe, that's a good point, that that sequence of calling in when you're trying to call another member, to call their TAC number and then identify yourself. That can be confusing, but it's not a big deal if you do it the other way around. Some folks will likely offer a correction, but most folks will just roll with it. Did you have something, Mike? You looked like you were about to.
Did I?
Oh, all right. All right. Well, thank you for that, Joseph. Did you have anything else?
Yes, sir, and as y'all pointed out, it's getting close to 9 o'clock, and so I will be clear. This is WSDC 498, Columbus 27 out of Boston, Georgia. Good night, fellas.
All right, good night. We've got you marked in and out. Roosevelt 81, Renee in Rockwood is in and out tonight, as well as Atlanta 1402, Todd from Sugar Village, in and out. Columbus 25, Peter in West Point, Georgia, is also in and out. And that'll bring us to Roosevelt 80, Eric in Rockwood. Eric, did you have any questions for the net?
Roosevelt 80, thank you, Justin. Don't have any questions for the net. I do have a comment. I'm assuming that a lot of this radio check complaining is for myself. Just want to add that I was only doing what Atlanta 60 asked me to do. Y'all have a great night.
Well, I don't believe that Atlanta 60 had any idea that there would be as big a volume of radio checks as there were. And the bigger concern here is the complaints that we saw from a number of members telling us they're turning their radio off. They're tired of hearing it. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing things that are making people tired of turning on the radio, that really takes many, many steps backwards. Probably as many steps backwards as installing that new repeater was. So we have relationships that we're going to have to repair, that we're going to have to work towards getting people back on the air. because just tired of hearing this monotony over and over again. So my point is this: if what you're adding to the network isn't interesting or useful, then don't. Just stop it. And that time is now. Okay, we don't need countless radio checks. If you're doing more than a couple of radio checks in a month, you're doing too many. I said a couple of radio checks in a month. If it's more than that, it's too many. It's too many. We don't need to check our radio day in and day out. And if you're doing radio checks to start a conversation, that is also improper. If you don't have somebody in mind to talk to, then you come on the air and you say that you're monitoring. And if somebody out there is interested in engaging in a conversation, they will. And that's another point I would like to make, is that I can't tell you how many times I hear somebody come on the air and they say they're monitoring. And then 2 minutes later, I hear somebody else come on the air and say that they're monitoring. But yet that conversation doesn't start. So when you hear somebody come on the air and say that they're monitoring, what that means is they're on the air and they're ready to have a conversation. And if that's something you want to do, you should engage that person then and there.
Yeah.
How many times do we hear somebody come on the air and say they're monitoring and they get no response? So that is far more useful than a radio check is. And if you're wondering if your radio will perform where you're at this moment, and you hear somebody come on the air and say, I'm monitoring, why not engage in that person in a conversation? Because that conversation is going to tell you everything you need to know.
Yep.
If you sound terrible and they can't read you, they might not answer you. That tells you something that you need to know. If you sound pretty good and you strike up a conversation, then it might be okay to say, is this signal adequate? Am I coming through well, or is there a lot of noise? In the course of a conversation, that's entirely different than coming on asking for one more radio check. That's 13 today. My golly, is there anything worthwhile? That's no different than watching TV and watching 16 minutes of your favorite TV show followed by 38 minutes of television commercials at 4 times the volume level.
Yeah.
It's tiresome to hear. So stop being tiresome to hear and start being interesting to listen to. That's the message for that particular instance. And again, if you're making more than a couple of radio checks through the course of a month, you're making too many. Let me break.
Well, I pay my dues just like everyone else does. And I assume I can use the radio just like everyone else is. You don't know how many times with Chattanooga 69, Rome 313, Neiman 120, I have done the radio checks by just conversations with them.
All right, and with that, we're going to continue on with McDonough 30. William in Hampton is a YouTube check-in. William is in and out. Roosevelt 80, Bart in Kingston. Bart, did you have any comments or questions for the net tonight?
05.
Good evening, gentlemen. WSCR 732, Roosevelt 08. The question I have at the moment is, everybody's saying, radio checks for a conversation starter. I see it as Roosevelt was just started, and they're looking for a footprint. They weren't looking to see how this radio was working or that radio was working. What I heard was, is my location, is the wording wrong? Could be. I didn't hear all of the wording, but break. Basically, it's just, okay, is the location where I'm at now working or not? Is the location where I'm at now working or not? Not is my radio working, but the location. But that's all I got. Back to net, WSCR 732, Roosevelt 08.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Bart, and I don't completely disagree. It's a brand new repeater. We would like to know how it performs. But the result of what took place last week was that we had a number of members telling us that they're tuning out. They're turning their radio off. They've heard enough. So, you know, we don't need to know what the footprint is today, right now, at this moment. That's something that we're not even going to learn today, even if you send 20 people out to go and check in various locations. But in time, we are going to know what that is. Just like every other repeater we've stood up. We haven't had to go out on day one to do a survey and determine what its coverage was on that day. But it is nice to know on your way home, you know, is it still hitting? Is it still hitting here? A couple of radio checks is not unreasonable. What happened last week was entirely unreasonable. And I gauged that because of the complaints that we got about people that are turning the radio off. If what you're doing is driving people to turn the radio off, then what you're doing is not productive for the network. All right, and so whatever we gain from adding that repeater, how hard do I have to work now to get those members back on the air? That's the concern that I have. And so I know that we're excited about having a brand new repeater on the air, but we don't need to drive everybody else off the air because of it. And if that's the case, it brings into question whether we really want to have that repeater on the air. So I don't want to go down that road. But that is the question that has been discussed a number of times here. So with that in mind, let's have conversations. But we don't need to open conversations with radio checks and how does it sound here and am I getting out from this location, because it's tiresome, and you know, call out to somebody and ask them if they've you know, had their coffee yet today, or just strike up a conversation. That, I think, would be far more interesting. It would be less likely to drive people to turn their radio off. That's the root of what I'm getting at here. If what you're doing is driving people off the air, stop it. And what's been done last week was exactly that. So that's what needs to be addressed, and that's what we're talking about. But I don't completely disagree. I'd like to know what that footprint is too. I mean, we can see the coverage maps, and those are very useful and oftentimes surprisingly accurate, but they're not absolute. And so there may be areas that the map shows little to no coverage where performance is actually better than expected, and the inverse is also potentially true. So doing those things is okay. It's the way that we did it last week that needs to be addressed, and it's not a matter of semantics or a matter of how it was worded. It was a matter of how it was done and a repetition of it being done so relentlessly through the course of a couple of days. All right, so with that, we're going to continue on with CW33. Tom in Bogart is in and out tonight, as well as next we have Atlanta 250, Dana in Dahlonega. Dana, did you have any comments or questions for the net? I'm going to let you take Dana.
Yes, I do. And first of all, I'd like to thank each of you, Mike, excuse me, Jeff, Justin. You guys are doing a great job tonight. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. Anyway, I would like to just address, first of all, everything that we're talking about tonight. If you were to take time as a new member or an existing member or a tenured member to read the MOU and rules of radio conduct, it's right there all the time, been there, never changed. Let me break. And just an added note that nobody, no member should exploit the network resources for their own accord. I mean, it's selfish, it's stingy, it's abusive. So, you know, that being said, again, you guys are doing a great job. I don't know if maybe you guys agree with me, but that's just how I feel. But back to you, net control.
Well, Dana, you make a great point, and I think that a lot of us would agree. The network should never feel like it belongs to any person or number of people. It's intended to be a resource for everybody, and everybody should have fair and equal use of the network. It should be available when you need it, when I need it, when Jeff needs it, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think if you feel like you're on the air and keying up too much, you probably are. And if you don't feel that way, then maybe someone will let you know, and you could take a hint. But yeah, it's a great point, Dana, and certainly appreciate your comments and input. Did you have anything else for us tonight?
I actually just have one more thing, and that's the support email at gmrs.org. Again, this is a resource. Don't use it for frivolous items. It gets extremely backed up. These guys are busy, and if it's something that can wait and maybe be discussed in a conversation down the road, just wait. I mean, aside from that, that's it. I am complete.
Well, I think Dana brings up some valid points here. And I think the other thing we've failed to mention is all of this is not for without cause. It's not for without reason. And for our senior members who have been around long enough and remember this net this time last year, this is a reminder net for the rules and how you should be operating on the network for the big event that we have coming up. Everybody kind of needs to fall in line and do their part and have the airwaves known what the rules and the structures are so that during that Jeep Fest event, the airwaves are available for anybody. If somebody has an emergency, if somebody needs to jump in with a, hey, my tire fell off my Jeep, or whatever the case may be, we need to get ourselves in line here so that come that event, our service is actually valuable to the community. So there is other reasons aside from what's already been discussed.
Well, and that structure also allows for ordinary communication between members that are not engaged in a Jeep Fest event, if they will just follow the protocol. So if you need to make a call out to somebody during the Jeep Fest net, the entire event will be conducted as a directed net. So all communications are handled through the net control operator. And what that means is if you want to talk to another member of the net, whether they're at Jeep Fest or not, first call out to the net control operator and get the net control operator to approve your communication, and be sure that you don't engage in quick keying for the duration of that communication, because if there is a message that needs to be broken in, there needs to be an opportunity for that. So that's something we should talk more about, is quick keying. There's a couple of things that quick keying becomes a problem for. The first one we talked about earlier was the operation of the repeaters, and how if you key up quickly and begin speaking immediately, the first part of your message can get lost to the linking portion of the repeaters. But the other element to quick keying is simply this: is that when you key your radio up, the moment you hear the carrier drop, the other person stop talking, that prevents anyone who may have pertinent information from being able to interject their comment into that conversation. Or maybe they don't have pertinent information, blah, 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 information relevant to your conversation, but they have an urgent need to make a call out to someone. They only need the airways for a minute, and then they'll get right out of your way and let you carry on. Quick keying becomes a problem because it keeps people from being able to get in and make those communications. So we need to allow a little bit of space from the time that somebody drops the key and the carrier falls before we hit our PTT. It's not a race. It's a hard habit, and it's one that's tough for me. So, I get it, and we're not going to be able to necessarily abide by that 100% of the time, but we do need to try. And
we need to break.
We need to break. Well, good stuff, Dana, and appreciate your contributions this evening. Did you have anything else for us before we go?
Just I'll leave everybody with a thought. Membership gives us access, but with that membership comes responsibility. And that is it.
That's an excellent point. And yeah, I think there's some things we could add to that, but I'm going to leave that alone for the time being. But that's something we should all think about is there is a certain responsibility to being a member and making a contribution, not only in terms of providing a financial contribution to the network to pay for things like Mount Roosevelt. I mean, that's
not cheap.
There's a significant cost in deploying equipment of that nature, and those costs are going up. Those repeaters used to be a lot easier to acquire on the market than they are these days, and it looks like that market is going to dry up pretty rapidly, which is going to cause us to go into purchasing things retail. So now the costs are going to be even greater. What does that do going forward? Well, we'll see. I don't know, but that's a good point. So it's not just the financial contribution that you make to the network. It's also what you do while you're on the air and what you do off the air too. It all matters. All right, who's next?
We've got a handful of in and outs. CW2, Stephen in Arnoldsville is in and out. CW1, Eileen in Arnoldsville is in and out. Chattanooga 6-9, Ronnie in Las Vegas was in and out. I think I've seen him in the YouTube chat as well. And Chattanooga 7-0, Jana, also in Las Vegas, is in and out. That'll bring us to McDonough 22. Tim, potentially still in beautiful downtown Stockridge. We've got him in tonight. Tim, did you have any questions, comments, or things that you wanted to share with the net tonight? It's getting toasty in here.
I am still here.
Yeah. All right, very good. We hear you. Go ahead with your comments.
My point tonight that I would like to address is just something that I've heard happening with all the radio checks that have been going on lately. One thing that seems to be frequently happening now is people will come on and ask for a radio check, and they sound great. So I can only assume that they don't have their receive tone programmed correctly. So I just thought I would mention as a reminder to the new people, be sure when you're programming your radio, the transmit PL tone is just half of it. The receive tone should either be set the same as your transmit tone or left off altogether. If you don't want a tone on your receive, then make sure you set it to off. That way you'll receive all incoming transmissions from the repeater as well as simplex. So for me personally, I like to put the tone on both transmit and receive because to block out any simplex or any other transmissions close by that might interfere with my listening to the repeater. But just make sure you get that that receive tone set either on or to the right proper tone or set it off completely, because otherwise when you make a call out, if you have set your transmit tone and you have a opposite or a different tone on your receive, then you're not going to hear the response to your call out there, Roger. Back to net control.
Let me get it.
Well, good points, Tim. And yeah, I have also heard a number of call-outs for a radio check, and somebody would respond to that radio check and then nothing. So you're right. That could very well be that their PL tone is set incorrectly on the receive. So there's a couple of schools of thought here, and I subscribe to both. You know, the idea that you leave the PL off of the receive side so you can hear everything, that allows you to hear the kids in the neighborhood on their Christmas and holiday Walmart radios, and sometimes that's fun to hear them. But it can also be kind of confusing when you hear traffic and you're not looking at the map, you can't tell if it came over the network or if it was local. That can be confusing sometimes, and if you go to answer somebody who is hitting your radio in simplex because you don't have tones, but you're answering them on a repeater, well, I've done that, and it's kind of embarrassing. When Houston comes back and says, Atlanta 946, I think the person you're talking to is on simplex. Yeah, probably they are. All right, so that's the hazard. If you're not going to put the PL tone on the receive because you want to hear all the kids in the neighborhood or whatever. So here's what my thoughts are on that. Is on your base radio and your mobile radio, definitely put the PL tone on the receive so that you don't get confused by that while you're out mobiling around or even from your base radio. But maybe have an HT handy that doesn't have the PL on, so if you hear it coming off the HT but it's not coming from the base, then you know it's simplex and you can respond accordingly. So but that's a great point. And the other thing is, if you do ask for a radio check and somebody comes back and tells you that your radio is good, or if they tell you something else, acknowledge that you heard the radio check. We're assuming that person is not acknowledging the radio check because their PL settings were incorrect. But don't be rude. I mean, just acknowledge that. And thank you for the radio check. And I'll see if I can fix it. Or, just thank you for the radio check is enough.
Yeah.
So good stuff, Tim. Did you have anything else?
No, I don't think so. I couldn't think of anything else. I mean, everybody's covered everything so thoroughly tonight and everything. I can't think of anything else that I could get into, but that was the one thing that was kind of on my mind, but it happened a couple times this week, and I can only... I'm just hoping people aren't so rude that they come on the radio and ask for a radio check, and when somebody responds, they just say, oh, well, my radio must be working, and choose not to have any response to the person that was kind enough to take their time to try to give them a radio check and help them out. A lot of people will answer a radio check by saying, oh, you sound great, this, that, and the other, right off the bat. I generally like to hear a little bit more, so I will say, the McDonald 22 go ahead radio check. That way, when they come back to me, I can hear a little bit more of their signal and give them a more accurate radio check. To me, I just prefer it to do that way rather than speak out what I heard on their initial transmission there. I like to do a little bit more thorough radio check if I possibly can there. But that's just me. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. But anyway, thanks again, gentlemen. Good net tonight, and I'll be listening throughout the rest of the evening here. Back to net control.
Well, good stuff, Tim. And yeah, I think that's a valid point. I don't know. I mean, I hate to think that people are just being rude. I would rather think, as you pointed out, that the programming in a radio is in error, and that's why they didn't come back. And hopefully they get that corrected and do get on the air. But definitely, and your approach is, I think, the classic. Let's not do a radio check. Let's have a conversation, and let's find out a little bit more about what you've got going on, and be able to provide a more accurate assessment of signal quality. Because countless times, in fact, Tim, if you'll go back, do you know what our timestamp is?
1:35.
You go back to about an hour 30, hour 35 on the YouTube playback. If you do this tomorrow, you'll hear during your transmission that you kind of cut out just a little bit during bits and pieces of it. We got most of what you had to say, and so that's fine. But that's part of a radio check, and that's part of information. If you're asking, how does my radio perform? If you're on an HT and you're walking around, there's a high probability that it will do that. The signal's going to wash completely out and then come back and whatnot. Same thing with a mobile. You can have a mobile radio that sounds great at the stoplight, but as soon as you start driving down that hill, your signal turns to mush, and pretty soon we can't understand what you're saying. and it's nothing but static and garble. So all of that is to say that we really just need to know that the radio is working and that you can pass communication. When you give a more detailed report, that's relevant a lot of times, for an HT to know that, okay, it works in this spot, but if I move over there, it doesn't. But as far as base radios go, there's really not much that's going to change there other than perhaps your microphone placement. Because you're on a cord and you can only go so far with a hand mic. So, that might perform better when you're looking at the radio versus when you're looking at the banner on the wall. But those are things that we need to learn about our own radios anyway. And that's something I get told all the time is I got to stop looking at the banner on the wall when I'm talking. But those things do have an effect on audio quality.
There's a good just a plug for the YouTube channel. There's a good Julie's Tips segment about radio checks and what makes a good quality radio check. And if you're building a new station for the first time or you've bought a new antenna, there's an application for it, and Julie outlines that pretty well if you want to watch that. Yeah, and there's a lot of good resources on the YouTube channel, so I recommend go there and drive up our watch hours and help us out. Like and subscribe. That helps immensely. So, all right. Thank you, Tim, for all of that. With that, looks like we have Atlanta 102. Jim incoming. Jim, did you have any comments for the net tonight? Any questions about radio etiquette?
No, but having checked in at the wrong time, obviously I probably should have had some on a previous net. I want to thank all of you. This is really awesome. And there is a learning curve. I'm a relatively new member, and while I know the flagship check-ins are segregated, I'm going to break. I wasn't paying attention to the clock, and you should have known that those check-ins come last. So when I heard some other people that I know around me, I was like, oops, time to check in. And the reason why I brought this up is that this network is awesome, but when you have an awesome resource like this, it comes with the responsibility of making sure you know the rules of the road and that you're an effective and good member of a network. And so I really appreciate what you all are doing tonight, and trying to learn and make less of these mistakes in the future. And thank you.
Well, I appreciate your comments. And, this is not the most fun thing for us in terms of, by golly, this is the way we do things. Because I really don't want to be rigid and structured. We do try to be a lot more flexible. And in fact, in most nights when people check in out of order, we don't even.
I just take them.
We just roll with it, because I know that sometimes people didn't realize, didn't know. Maybe they're new, maybe they're not new, and they just weren't paying attention. I get it. I've been there. Guilty as charged. But we felt like tonight we had to make that an issue, because tonight really is about what is the expected protocol. And if we don't make light of that here, then it just gets more difficult to address later down the road. For the most part, check-ins go so much better these days than they did even a year ago. But particularly a couple of years ago, we would ask for check-ins, and there would be 4 people on the radio at the very same time, and we couldn't make out any one of them. And so over time, I've learned that if we ask for the call sign first and it gets stepped on, I might still be able to pull a TAC number out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I can hear the TAC number, I can validate the TAC number if I can hear the person's name and or city. So that's kind of how that process came to be. Is the call sign is kind of a throwaway for me. I don't use the call sign, but I need it to be there to buy me a little bit of time to get past the double. Sometimes it doesn't get past the double, but when the double lasts for the duration of a check-in, whoever has the strongest or the best proximity to the repeater is probably going to win that check-in. But these are just things that we've learned along the way, and like Mike has pointed out, there's a reason, and we think it's a good reason, and it's based primarily on things we've learned over the years doing this net. We've got over 90 check-ins, approaching 100 tonight.
We're pushing 100.
with a net this large, with that much participation, it's important that we have a procedure to make that as efficient as possible. Otherwise, the program will be all about check-ins, and there's no time for a conversation. So, and as people have indicated, 9 o'clock is checkout time for a lot of folks, and this net's going to go a little bit later than 9.
A little bit longer.
So good stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, and appreciate you being along. Welcome to the network. Next on the list, I have CW41, Richard in, well, he's between Watkinsville and Lula.
I wonder if he's made it to either of them yet.
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know if he's walking. It's kind of getting dark out there, so hope he's got some reflective wear on if he's, hopefully he's driving. In any case, he's in and out, so we're not going to find out. Next, we have Atlanta 469 William in Dallas is in and out. I have Atlanta 605 Michael incoming, in and out. I have 780 Houston in Austell. Houston is in and out with us this evening. Atlanta 57 Andrew in Holly Springs, in and out. Atlanta 637 Dave in Kennesaw, in and out. And that'll bring us to Atlanta 403 Bobby at the Vortex. Bobby, did you have any questions or comments for the net tonight?
Well, good evening, gentlemen. And lots of comments, probably more comments than I could fit in tonight. But a lot of great, I'm sorry if I was overmodulating the Vortex. I'll move the mic away. A lot of great points. Dana made some great points. New people got to be looking at the MOU and the Code of Conduct. And if you don't understand anything, get on the air and ask. We're all here to help. And Tim, once again, made some great points with the radio checks and everything he had to say about that. I just want to add, radio check isn't a way to initiate a conversation, But, that's what they do on CB. That's what drove people away from CB. That's all you hear to get in contact with radio check. And it does get ridiculous. But most of the people here tonight have made great points. Let me break. And I just want to say, this is something that's got to be repeated maybe once a year, maybe more times a year to people. The new people, like I say in all my posts on Facebook, the best way to learn this is to listen to how it's done, and you'll get the hang of it. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's just basic talking to people, but you got to be courteous. You got to understand that, if people are in the middle of a conversation, don't break in and ask for a radio check. Wait for them to finish. Most of the time, it's only a few minutes that they're going to be talking. If you have to make a comment, if it's relevant to what they're talking about, sure, go ahead and comment. Or if you've got an emergency, of course, you're going to comment. But if you got nothing relative to say and you just want to be heard, that's not a reason to break into somebody's conversation. You can wait a minute. Most of the time, at least me, when I talk to people, I'm on and off the radio real quick. I don't spend a huge amount of time talking. And let me break again. And to add to that, what you were saying about the roundtable. The roundtables are a great thing. I think it's something that if you're going to do, primarily do it, in the nighttime when the network's a lot quieter. Try not to get a roundtable started at prime time radio time during the day, because, then people are going to be breaking in and saying, hey, Joe, I'm coming over to your house, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying. At night, when things have quieted down on the network, that's a perfect time for a roundtable. The roundtable's a great way to get people involved and get them discussing things and having great conversations. The one last week that I heard was outstanding. I missed some of those late nights with Todd that we used to call them, and he always had good ones going at night. And, this is all about having fun, but it's so big now, you got to have the courtesy, and you got to have the etiquette, and you got to understand how things are done so it does not get out of hand and does not turn into the world of CB.
Kate's been on the screen with that grin on her face all night. You mentioned radio checks, Bobby, but I tell you, I don't know where the radio bank is or even how to cash one. But in the roundtable comment is definitely something I would love to see make a comeback and be a regular part of the net. So let's talk about the roundtable here for just a moment before we lose any more listeners to bedtime. The roundtable is in most cases, it's a spontaneous conversation where you've got more than two participants. So you get two people that come on the air and a third person wants to engage in the conversation. Well, then just imagine folks sitting at a table. The table might even be round, but it doesn't have to be.
Weird.
Right? It doesn't have to be. But the first person that's talking, then that person yields to the person to their right. Then that person has the floor for a moment to say their piece. And then that person yields to their person on their right. And so on and so forth. So you can have 3 participants, 7 participants, really as many as are wanting to engage in that conversation. And so you wait your turn, you make note of the person that went before you, and the best way to do this is to call out one another's names. So when it's your turn to speak, and you finish your speech, then you hand it over to the person to your right, which would be, in this case, Jeff. Jeff, go ahead and take it over from here. Then Jeff would talk, and when he's done talking, he would hand that off to the person to his right, whoever that might. Who's on your right?
Nobody at the moment.
All right, so he would hand it off to nobody at the moment, and then that person could continue the conversation for a period of time, and when they're finished with their piece, hand it off to the right. That's the round table, and that's a method that works really well. You kind of have to pay a little bit of attention to who's before you and who's at, know where your place is, and wait your turn.
And then leave extra time in between in case somebody wants to join.
That's right. That's right. Make sure that we don't quick key and key up the moment we hit a carrier drop, so that if another person wants to come in, they can take that slot. You fit them in. You change the order to put that person in that slot at that moment, and then you continue on. People will drop out. If I call on Jeff and he's not there, well, he's not there. He had to go, and whoever's next in line can take that spot, and we just continue on. So the round table doesn't require a net control operator, doesn't require a leader, it doesn't require membership, leadership approval. We can do roundtables virtually whenever we have more than 2 people engaged in a conversation. And the best way to do that is to be open and welcoming and slow. Be slow enough that there's time in between transmissions for other folks to join in. So good stuff, Bobby, and let me know if you find that radio bank. Next on the list, we have Atlanta 256 Chuck in Dawsonville. Chuck, you have any questions or comments for the network? Any questions on radio etiquette?
As a matter of fact, I do. And one of them comes in the word you just said, comment.
Comment?
There's nothing worse than being in a conversation when somebody says comment, and then they take over your entire conversation that you had going with absolutely little or no relevance to what you were talking about. It gets quite annoying. I don't have a problem with comments. Matter of fact, I think I can recall a comment the other day, and there was a quick keying comment about it. I don't have problems with people doing comments. But when you comment, it is not to interrupt the conversation and take it over. Wait till the conversation is over and then call up that person that you wanted to say something to. But don't interrupt people, and don't do it constantly. And when I say constantly, I mean constantly. It gets old, and yeah. The other thing, I applaud you guys. The radio checks was just crazy this last several days. I did turn my radio off. I unplugged my radio. Yeah. But comments is another big one that we need to touch on. There's only a few that do it, and they totally interrupt the conversation and say nothing that is germane to what we were discussing. Other than that, I think you guys covered it all. Again, appreciate what you're all doing, and I appreciate everybody's comments.
Comment. Comment.
Comment.
Well, I hear you, Chuck, and I didn't really hear any of those conversations. I've not been able to monitor this last week the way I typically do, but I can understand that, and I can certainly. I mean, on one hand, we want to be open to be able to add participants to the roundtable, and the roundtable. You know, Bobby suggested we do that at night. It doesn't have to be at night, as long as we're leaving time in between transmissions and allowing people to comment in, and they're contributing to a meaningful conversation. That roundtable can happen spontaneously, virtually at any time of the day. But if you're interrupting a conversation, it needs to be because you have a message that is important or urgent, time sensitive, or that you are speaking something relevant to the ongoing conversation. I mean, if we're talking about mowing our lawns and killing weeds, and you want to come in and ask for a radio check in the middle of that, that's a little bit rude. Instead of asking for a radio check in the middle of that, think about what the context of the conversation is, and think about your experiences and your efforts in those areas, and see if you have something meaningful that you can contribute to the conversation and engage in that way. That would be far more appreciated and welcomed in terms of you getting on the air. But if your purpose to comment your way into a conversation is just to make sure that people know that you're on the air, stop it. Stop it.
It's really no different than how we would act in a social situation in person.
Yeah,
you know, if
you
we're
got three
together,
guys standing around talking about something, and you barge your way in to talk about something else, you know, that's not socially acceptable behavior.
Right.
And it's much the same here on the air. You know, we want to foster an open and friendly and inviting environment. And so in most cases, when somebody acts rudely, the last thing we want to do is call them out for it and embarrass them in public. But that's kind of what tonight's net is we're finally calling people out for some of their socially awkward behaviors. And we're hoping that this will not be an embarrassment, but an opportunity to recognize some behaviors and make some improvements. And at the same time, we really want to let some of the new folks on the network get an idea of behaviors that are expected and behaviors that are not expected. And so I hear what you're saying, Chuck, and appreciate your comments. Do you have anything else?
No, sir. No, sir. Again, I'm not saying comments are bad. I'm saying comments can be good. But if your sole intention is to just hijack a conversation, and I'm not referring to the roundtables, I'm talking about you're chatting in the morning and all of a sudden somebody says comment and then just hijacks the whole conversation. Well, you can tell how I feel about it because I just turn the radio off. I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that comment. Now, that's not to say all comments are bad. Some are good. Some are meant to be, and some people actually say comment and you know it's going to be something funny. And that's good. But, yeah, no, like Bobby said, listen, and listen. Listen and see who it is out there you don't want to be like. And that'll make you a better radio operator. And that'll be back to you guys.
I was distracted there for a moment, Chuck. What did you say? I'm just kidding. Oh, all right.
Somebody needs to listen better.
Oh, that's what it was. All right. Well, thank you for that, Chuck. We're going to continue on. We have Atlanta 395 Mark in Kennesaw in and out. Chattanooga 33 Charles in Chattanooga in and out. Chattanooga 49 Robert in Dalton in and out. We have Atlanta 943 Jim in Monroe in and out. We have Atlanta 261 Scott in Holly Springs in and out. That'll bring us to Atlanta 240 Patrick in Johns Creek. Patrick, we're talking about radio etiquette tonight. Do you have any questions or comments?
Well, you guys had been talking about link delay earlier and waiting for the link to kick up. I have a waterfall that I watch the network on when I'm on my base, and so I can actually see that link delay happening in real time. And I can tell which of the 5 or 6 repeaters I can usually see someone has keyed up on, because I can see that repeater start talking first.
Is that a Port 95
And
radio?
to that effect,
Absolutely
I will
not.
typically, even when I'm just announcing that I'm
Probably an
mobile,
SDR.
I'll still use the "this is," like I'm trying to check into the net, or like an or something, just a little bit of filler at the beginning so that it's not dead silent.
This is an excellent use of a time-wasting phrase, and it's great because it's just the amount of time that we need to get the repeaters to build their links and all come up and play. So I think that's a great way to start your conversation on the air. Even each sentence, get a good thing to get into the habit of, and of course, using that phrase during the check-in process. We didn't really talk about that, so let's talk about that for a moment, because this is really aimed at new users. So we ask folks to say "this is" when they check into the net, and part of that process is 2 steps. The first one is, if you key up the radio and you say "this is," the next thing you do is unkey the radio and you listen for about 2 seconds. All right, and if there is traffic there, then that means that you were doubled, and it means that somebody else is trying to make a check-in. The best thing to do is to wait until the air is clear when that person finishes his check-in, and then try it again. Say "this is," let off the key. If the airwaves are clear, continue your check-in with confidence that you're not being stepped on. But what many times happens is you come on the air and you say, "This is WQYR 514 Atlanta 946, Justin checking in from Woodstock." And at the very same moment, Atlanta 750 checked in, and neither one of us know that we've doubled on each other. And Net Control has to listen through that noise to try to figure out who that was. Oftentimes, one signal is stronger than the other, and we can get that one, but there will be a signal in the background that we miss. So if you come on the air and you say "this is," and you unkey, and you listen for a moment, and then you continue with your check-in, that allows you to know that your check-in is not being doubled, or at least it increases the probability that you're not being doubled tremendously. But Patrick's suggestion is a little bit different. Let me break. And I think this is really good. What Patrick is suggesting is that we also use "this is" or something similar as a filler, so that when we key the microphone, that moment that we key, we need to build some time in to allow the links to connect. And by keying the mic and saying "this is," or saying something that's a throwaway word, to consume that little bit of time, allows the links to build, and then the rest of your message can be heard clearly without any of it being lost. I think the key is that we just need to make sure that folks in the conversation understand that is a throwaway phrase, that's not important or germane to the message you're conveying, that's just there to take up that brief moment of time. And I think that's a great idea.
The other thing I wanted to touch on while we're talking about the delays here is every once in a while the internet will, for lack of a better word, hiccup or stutter, and one repeater will be well ahead, like almost a second. And I have noticed people sometimes get caught in that little gap, and they'll try to comment and double. So even if people are leaving gaps, every once in a while you can get lost. So the first time you call comment, you might get buried. And the other thing is that a lot of new users might not know what a double sounds like. You were talking about how the FM capture effect can cause the stronger signal to just walk over the other one and you won't even hear it.
Yeah, that's right. Usually you can hear there's some intermodulation artifact that you can hear. And sometimes, every now and then, we'll have two repeaters come up at the very same instant, and they will both get carried to the core and repeated. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And when that happens, it's really weird because you hear both audio messages perfectly at the same time. And when that happens, that's different than the intermodulation of being doubled or stepped on. When that happens, it's kind of, well, we've heard it a handful of times in here. I don't know how often we hear that over the repeater network, but it is interesting because you can hear both voices clearly, and usually we're able to pull both of the check-ins out of that when it happens. And you'll notice sometimes too when you key up, if you're looking at the map, you'll see two repeaters change color at the same time. Like I say, it's uncommon. You might have to look at it for a long time to ever catch it, but when you spend the kind of time on the air that we do on Thursday nights, it does happen. So a couple of things to be aware of, but that's great that you pointed that out. And I suppose folks maybe don't realize what a double is, but if you listen long enough, you'll hear the intermodulation effect of two stations trying to talk at the same time. And that's one of the reasons we push flagship off to the end, because a lot of the flagship listeners will actually cheat a little bit. And I don't know that this is truly cheating, but if they're able to hit flagship and a different repeater, I notice a lot of our users will go over to that different repeater to check in and then come back to flagship for the net. That's okay. The point of pushing the flagship repeater check-ins off to the last is because that's where the majority of the doubles occur. And so the more people we get checked in before we go to flagship, the smoother the check-in process generally goes. So that's a big part of why we do that. And it's just something, again, that we've learned over time and experience. So good stuff. Patrick, did you have anything else before we move on?
Yep, just two little things.
I knew there was more.
It might be my location, but it looks like Lula might have gone down during your last comment there. Or at least it had something going on with it. It cut off, and then it kind of faded back in. But the important thing is that intermodulation effect you were talking about, that noise has a name. It's called a heterodyne, and it's actually the same thing that a heterodyne radio exploits. It's a beat frequency produced by two close frequencies interfering with each other.
Somebody's been studying for their amateur license upgrade is what I'm hearing. But yes, that is the effect, and that is what it's called. And that is a kind of a unique sound when you hear it on the network. And it gets even a little weirder when you add in the digital PL tones. You can hear the PL tones kind of sort of out of phase, and that adds to the weirdness of that sound.
It almost sounds like a diesel engine running in the background with the digital PLs.
Yeah, you can hear the turbo whistle kind of fluttering in the background, and yeah, so things that you'll hear if you listen long enough. And thanks for bringing in the term. The heterodyne is definitely well, for those of us that are looking at upgrading our amateur license, that's a great piece of information. So, all right, Patrick, with that, we're going to go ahead and keep right on moving here. We've got a ways to go. What are we? We're not even halfway. So we've got some in and outs here. We'll get through here fairly quickly. We got Atlanta 454 Steve in Lilburn, as well as Atlanta 453 Janine in Lilburn. We have Atlanta 823 Frank in Marietta. We have Gainesville 44 Joe in Cleveland. We have CW24 Ronnie in Alberton. We have Atlanta 410 Kevin in Alpharetta. We have Atlanta 77 Warner in Tucker. And we have Atlanta 419 Jason in Cumming. All were in and out. And that'll bring us to Atlanta 532 Tom in Flowery Branch. Tom, we're talking about radio etiquette tonight. Do you have any questions or comments for the net?
Well, good evening, Net Control. It's a great topic tonight. I do have just a few comments that I want to add. You got to remember, we all should be good stewards of the network. A lot of new users, they don't know things, so let's help them out. We don't have to be mean or snarky about it. We can just help them and educate them. And that way you won't scare them away from using the radio. You encourage it. And, just teach them. One of the best things we can do.
Well, that's a great point, and it's one of the things that I would, I kind of marvel at our Facebook page because we do so little moderation on the page. We do a lot more these days than we'd have in the past, but overall, it's rare and unusual for us to change or delete a comment or change a post or take one down that's been put up. It happens. It's not that it never happens, but it's untypical. It's not the normal. And we very often have new users ask the same question that has been asked for the prior 3 weeks. The question gets asked over and over again. And I love the fact that our members will write an answer. They're not copying and pasting last week's answer. They're writing a new answer to the same question from another new user, and they're giving that person good, quality, helpful, constructive information. I love that about this group. And that's the environment that I want to foster. That's the kind of people I think we are at our root, and I want to encourage that behavior. And for the most part, it just happens. It just happens. We haven't done anything really to drive that. It just happens, and that's awesome. Now, on the occasions where we decline a post, or we maybe take a comment down, or we do things, typically that's because we don't feel like that post is being viewed constructively or is contributing in a constructive manner to the network as a whole. So, for instance, there were some questions this week that came up that...
Well, sometimes it just takes a turn in the comments, too, and it wasn't necessarily the original post that was negative, but then the comments is where it went sideways, so we just pulled the whole thing down.
And that often is the best thing to do, is just pull the whole thing down and stop that movement in that direction, get rid of that momentum. There were some events that happened this week that were filled with poor, uninformed information, and people had asked us to post, and instead of posting the bad information, Jeff made a comment on our Facebook page with the correct information. So if anybody is trying to decipher what I'm talking about, it's the Not a Rubicon comment that was made this week. It's ill-informed, and as often comes from that particular channel, it's less than serious information. It's less than credible, and so I don't really like to promote or advertise or make mention of that channel, because very often information is presented in a humorous way that sometimes the humor is missed, And I can't tell you how many times I've had to have conversations to redirect the information that came from that channel. And for that reason, you won't see that channel referenced on our Facebook page or YouTube or anywhere else. We don't want to promote that because it's not the best source of information for GMRS news and information. I'll tell you what the best source is that I'm aware of, and that would be the North Georgia GMRS Network YouTube page. Let me break. So good stuff, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's something we hadn't really considered yet tonight, and I appreciate that. Did you have anything else for us, Tom?
Now, you've about covered a lot of good subjects tonight, so I just wanted to kind of throw that comment in there and add my 2 cents worth in. So, Net Control, you're doing a great job, and I'll give it back to you. We're clear.
Very good. And yeah, that's something that this group has naturally kind of come to is being a very family friendly and friendship fostering group. I've heard many people talk about this group as not being a radio club, but being more like a family. And I love that about this group, and I believe it to be the truth. Next on the list, we have a guest check-in from WSCX422, Mike in Columbus. Mike, did you have any comments or questions for the net tonight?
Just more comment than anything. I appreciate all what you guys and gals have done. Y'all have put a lot of effort into this, and I think that is definitely obvious and a reflection on how well everything works out. And I think new users like me need to be putting in the same level of effort when it comes to learning all this. I know we all get busy in our everyday lives, and time is a very valuable thing, but I think the more effort you put into something, and that's whether it's GMRS or whatever, so I definitely try to put my share of effort of whether it's reading.
Timer.
My apologies, I had to break. But just reading, researching, and doing what you can on your part makes everything so much better, and that's about it.
Well, good points, Mike. And yeah, learning as much as you can from as many sources as you can is always a good thing. We try to provide as much information as we know how to on our webpage. We try to make posts to inform folks on our YouTube page. We try, we just try to provide as much information as we can, and that's kind of what tonight's net is about. Is an extension of showing that information and answering questions. And so one of the things that I would like to draw attention to is if you have questions, if you looked on the website and you don't understand, you can go to the Facebook page and you can ask yet again, what is a TAC number and how does it work? You can ask, how do I get my license? You can ask, these are questions we get asked all the time. You can ask, can I get my membership prorated? You can ask all of the questions that you can think of on our Facebook page, and we'll gift you an answer. And it may take a minute for somebody to see that. You may not have an instant answer, but probably by the end of the day you'll have something. And if it's a busy weekend and we don't get to it right away, and the same is true for the email, if you send emails to the support email page or any of the other North Georgia GMRS email accounts, a lot of us are working through the day, and we may not be able to answer that question immediately. And if we get 6 or 7 emails that tell us that a repeater is down, we may not be able to respond to all of them, but the email is the best way to tell us that there's trouble with the repeater, because it gives us an opportunity to inquire. Maybe you can answer more questions about it. Maybe you can provide more detailed information about what makes that repeater seem like it's in trouble to you. Sometimes these repeaters are too far away from us for us to actually go to, but in a lot of cases, we don't need to go to them to get them back on the air. We just need to reset a node or something of that nature. So it looks like Lula is back.
Well, you made mention about questions being asked on the Facebook page, but another thing to think about is almost every episode of Julie's Tips is generated from commonly asked questions. So sometimes you can go back to the YouTube page and just watch Julie's Tips on a question that you may have, and she'll explain it to you.
Yeah, and you can watch 2 or 3 episodes of Julie's Tips, each evening. They're relatively short. They're 5 to 10 minutes in length, and it might be a lot of material to absorb all at once, but you could watch 2 or 3 episodes each evening, and through the course of a week or two, have most of that information presented. So definitely encourage going to the YouTube channel for information about how the network works and all of that. So even tonight's episode talked a lot about some of the detailed intricacies of our network and how it works. And there's other nets where she gets into more detailed information about the linking structure of the network. Good stuff, Mike. Thank you for your contribution this evening, and we hope to hear more from you as we go. We've got a handful of YouTube check-ins here. I've got WRWB802 Larry in Colorado. I've got Chattanooga 204 Steve in Ringgold. WRUJ544 Josh in Roanoke, Virginia. I've got Noonan 483 Randy in Sonoa. I've got Atlanta 514 Michael in Cartersville, and Atlanta 515 Jody in Cartersville. All of those are YouTube check-ins. We had Roosevelt 83 Bill in Rockwood. Thank you for that relay. We got Bill in a log tonight. And we also have Gainesville 100 Randall in the Philippines, 12 hours ahead of us, so he's just starting his day. Hopefully he's had breakfast by now and ready to go enjoy what is tomorrow to us.
Yeah.
So thanks, Randall, for hanging out with us tonight. We have Rome 27 Terry in Menlo is in and out. We have CW40 Robert in Nicholson is in and out. Gainesville 58 Jonathan in Oakwood in and out. Rome 12 Mark in Rome is a YouTube check-in. And we have Roosevelt 82 Jenny in Rockwood is in and out. Next on the list I have Dallas 20 David in southwest Paulding County. David, did you have any questions or comments for the net tonight? We're talking about radio etiquette.
Good evening, everyone. One thing I wanted to bring up was responding to the calls out for monitoring. I know this past weekend there were a couple of new members I heard that said that they were monitoring, and one, I cannot remember his tag number right now. His name is Hector. But he was, walking around town with the HT and wanted to see if he was, if anyone could hear him. And he just called out and said it was monitoring. I've never spoken with him, so when you hear the new guys say that they're monitoring, it may be the first time they've got on the air. Answer them. Just pick up that radio and talk to them. That's what they're looking for, because they don't know who to call out for yet, because they're just getting started. So, as our seasoned members, or, hey, if you just want to have a conversation, respond to those monitoring calls, because there's nothing better than, man, I'm a brand new member, I got a brand new radio, I've only been here a month, oh wow, somebody's talking to me. It's so cool to talk to somebody on the radio, but it kind of is, it's like a put off if you make those calls out and no one responds, you don't know if your stuff is working. So respond to those monitoring calls. It'll spark up maybe even a new friendship you didn't know was out there.
I definitely agree, and that's a great point. And yeah, I mean, how many friendships have you gained from your participation in this network? Not just with the administration side of things, just with folks that you've met along the way. I couldn't tell you how many hands I've shaken and how many faces I've been able to enjoy at different gatherings and things because of this network. And I have a list of people I count as friends that I don't even know how to manage. It's just tremendous what this network has brought to me in my life, and I think that you would agree. And many of us have also, we've acquired lifelong friends and acquaintances. And sometimes, these are people that are hours away from us in terms of distance, and yet, based on the conversations and the context and the quality of individual that you've met along the way, that if you said, hey, I need some help, they'd be there. And I've experienced that myself. I can't tell you how many times people have shown up to work on projects here. You've been one of them. Many people have done that. And, it's just been a phenomenal thing to be a part of this network, because that next radio call that comes out, that monitoring, that could be a resource far more valuable than the 5 minutes you're going to spend on the air. And maybe not. Maybe it's just another voice in the crowd. But either way, it's worthwhile, and I definitely encourage folks to do that. So there again, if you want to engage in a conversation and you hear somebody call out and they say that they're monitoring, call that person. That's the person that needs a contact right now and is ready and willing to make that conversation, rather than roll the dice and hope that 1402 or 750 or Dallas 20 or Atlanta 946 is listening, or that Blue Ridge free salad guy. Who knows if he's on the air or not. So
I'm almost always listening.
So, that's your opportunity for your next best friend. What are you laughing at?
He is never going to live that down. Free salad guy is going to be down in history.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. You're 100% correct.
Well, good stuff, David, and glad you checked in with us this evening. And with that, I think, I've lost my place. Where am I?
We're in Woodstock.
Oh, there I am. Next on the list, it's that whole relay crowd. We have Dallas 2-1. Lisa in Southwest Paulding County is in and out. Dallas 2-2. Seth, coincidentally, in Southwest Paulding County is in and out. You'll never guess where Dallas 2-3 lives. Belinda is in Southwest Paulding County, in and out. The next three are also in Southwest Paulding County. That's going to be Dallas 4-5 Robert, Dallas 4-6 Casey, and Dallas 4-7 Brooke. All are in and out in Southwest Paulding County. Next, I have Gainesville 6-7 Mike in Commerce. Mike, did you have any questions or comments for the net? We're talking about radio etiquette tonight.
There's a lot more mics than usual in the log tonight.
Well, we got 4 right on the desk, then one behind the desk.
Plus the ones in the log.
I think Mike went to bed.
Yep, probably.
Mike might have went to bed.
All right, we're going to go ahead and show Gainesville 6-7 Mike as in and out, and we're going to keep right on moving. Atlanta 136 John in Covington is in and out. Noonan 3-1 John in Fayetteville is in and out. We have Toccoa 3-3 Matthew in Pickens, South Carolina is in and out. We have a YouTube check-in from Mark, WSCL 731 in New York. We have Atlanta 849 Pamela in Duluth is in and out, as well as Atlanta 848 Ernest, also in Duluth, in and out. Next I have Gainesville 43 David in Auburn. David, we're talking about radio etiquette. Do you have any questions or comments for the net?
I don't really have anything to add. Kind of inadvertently checked in.
kind of intended to check in and out, but I've been listening, and sounds like everything's been covered well. So I will just turn it back over to you guys.
All right, David. Well, thank you for checking in tonight, and glad to have you as part of the net, and definitely glad to have you in the log. Next, I have Blue Ridge 46, David in Dahlonega, in and out. At Blue Ridge 59, Wayne in Jasper is in and out. I have Atlanta 11 John in Canton is in and out. I have WRQD 950 Donnie in Clintwood, Virginia as a YouTube check-in tonight. I have BR 549 Uncle Mike from up around Cherry Log is in and out tonight. Chattanooga 19 Jack in Chattanooga in and out tonight. Atlanta 355 Damon in Canton is a YouTube check-in. Atlanta 170 Dalton in Cartersville is in and out. Atlanta 263 Rogers in Dunwoody is in and out. CW5 Cindy in Comer is in and out. Blue Ridge 64 Melissa in Blue Ridge is a YouTube check-in tonight. And that'll bring us to a guest check-in, WRXD 340 David in Wichita. David, did you have any questions or comments? Is David checking in on Zello, or is that?
No, he's from Wichita. He's visiting.
Oh, he's visiting and coming. All right. So David might be there. Let's see if David's there. David, do you have any questions or comments for the net?
I just wanted to say I appreciate the opportunity to check in with you guys today. We're just down here visiting for 10 days, and am enjoying the time listening and the opportunity to speak a couple of times. I've talked to 2 or 3 of the people since we've been here. So I appreciate it again, and you guys are doing a great job down here, and I'll turn it back to you.
All right, David. Well, welcome to North Georgia and the network. We're glad to have you visiting with us this week and for the next few days. If you happen to be around, there's going to be a rabbit hole net on Monday. Very, very good net to listen to. We have, what else do we have coming up?
We got the Simplex Challenge tomorrow night.
Simplex Challenge tomorrow night, if you want to try to participate in that.
He could probably do well in the coming area.
Coming, yeah, I would think so.
And we can probably talk Todd into another roundtable on Saturday.
I'll bet we could. I think Saturday evening roundtable is a high probability. And so those are some of the things. But definitely, of all the things that you might tune into, the rabbit hole net on Monday evening, I think you'll enjoy quite a lot. And we'll be here again next Thursday. So glad to have you along. And guest check-ins are always welcome on any of the North Georgia GMRS nets. So thanks for hanging out with us this evening. Next on the list, I have Noonan 120 Carmine in Fayetteville. Carmine, did you have any questions or comments for the net tonight? We're talking about radio etiquette.
No, I don't have no questions or comments. I've been listening. We have a lot of good points tonight.
All right, Carmine. Well, glad to have you along this evening. And with that, we're going to continue on. We have Atlanta 519. Gary in Marietta is in and out tonight. We have Chattanooga 96. Jeffrey in Tennessee on YouTube. Somewhere in Tennessee.
Somewhere in Tennessee.
Is a YouTube check-in. I got a bunch of YouTube check-ins here. So we have Atlanta 506 Daniel in Ackworth as a YouTube check-in. We have a guest check-in from WQTK 732 Bill in upstate New York by way of YouTube. We also have Atlanta 318 Daniel right here in Woodstock is a YouTube check-in. Gainesville 76 John in Gainesville is in tonight. John, did you have any questions or comments? We're talking about radio etiquette tonight.
Good evening, Jason. Thank you for letting me in. And I only have one comment. Is we need to have more filters when we talk on the radio, especially with kids. Kids are very rare to be in the radio, And when they come to the radio and they trying to talk and ask questions, we need to approach it very nicely, and in a way they like the radio more. Remember, we are adults and we are gone half a way out, and we need to leave the radio for the kids, for the next generation. But when one of these kids come to the radio and they don't know how to talk, teach them how to talk. Teach them all the protocol instead of ditch this poor guys. Last week it was a new kid. He says that he has permission for his dad to talk in the radio. And he gave us the tag number. I looked at it on the computer. That tag number was an open tag. It wasn't assigned to nobody. Probably the kid misunderstood his dad or whatever reason. He was trying to learn and asking questions and see how the radio work and everything. Listen, people, we need to have more filters and touch with these kids, because anything you said, if you said it wrong, it can be a reason for so many people turn the radio off. That's what I have to say. Thank you very much. Have a great night, and Gainesville 76, WRUH 751.
Very good, John. And I recall hearing parts of that day, that young individual coming on the air. I don't remember what TAC number he used, and I think didn't we hear a name as well, a first name for that guy? Do you remember?
I don't remember the name, but
I don't
do
either.
remember the conversation.
But from what I heard, and I may not have heard all of the conversations, but I heard a number of people engage him and welcome him to the airwaves and encourage him in the use of the radio. There did come to question some legitimacy as to whether the TAC number was right and whether the call sign was right. I think that some folks came on the air and said, that's not a legitimate TAC number, and that's unfortunate because the way that it was presented was less than welcoming. And I would have liked for that individual, even if he was mistaken about his TAC number, wrong, completely wrong. Maybe he didn't even have permission to be on the air. Maybe his dad didn't know that he was using the radio, because I haven't heard him on the air since. Nonetheless, I think that we would do well to welcome and encourage and not challenge and not try to correct, but lead by example and show the youth members of this network how we expect the membership to behave, and to offer some grace in that circumstance. We do have a youth net. It's held the second Saturday of each month. Currently, the youth net is suspended for personal reasons. Our net controllers have a major life event going on. What did they have happen that they couldn't be on the net for a couple of months?
Actually, North Georgia GMRS is the newest lifetime member.
Oh, that's right.
Technically.
That would be Eric Wolf, TAC number to be determined. So Eric is the newest North Georgia GMRS lifetime member, and Victoria and John are taking advantage of this opportunity to spend time and energy with their brand new baby. And so they're not going to be available for net control operations until maybe August, maybe September. We'll see. So, but once they come back, we'll be holding a monthly youth net. And, I have to say, I really wish that net were better participated in. I know we have a lot of children within this network. I've seen a lot of them at the barbecue. So it drives me crazy that we don't have better participation in the youth nets. Nonetheless, John and Victoria are committed to hosting the youth net once a month to make that available not only for their kids, and it is fun to hear their kids, and soon we'll be hearing more from Tom. Thomas will be more active on the air, It'll be a little while before we hear from Eric, but I think that Little John, Atlanta 810.5 is always a blast. You never know what that kid's going to say. It's always interesting and fun. We definitely should encourage our youth. And John, you're 100% right. I wish that the challenges didn't come on the air in the manner in which they did. They were appropriate to address, just maybe with a better tone. So, good points. And we definitely want to encourage our youth to participate. In fact, with adult supervision and guidance, we can bring our kids on the air really any time. We hope that you'll bring them on during the Youth Net. But, if you wanted to have your kids check in on a Thursday night, if you would coach them and tell them what to say, Little John, Atlanta 810.5, has checked into this net several times and will likely again as time and bedtimes permit. But let me break. I'll be right back. So we definitely welcome kids to come on the air and check in. John, tell me, there was going to be an amateur test in your family. How did that go?
Well, my son is still studying for that. He's been busy playing basketball. He's in the tournament. But according to him, maybe this weekend or Monday he will take the test.
Well, that's fantastic. And, at that age, at your son's age, time is fleeting. They're busy with so many things, active with so many things. And the last thing they have time for is whatever dad wants to do. So I get it. I've got kind of the same thing going on with my adult son. So we were hoping to have a visit with him here. And instead, we're going to go visit him there. Quick trip to North Carolina, but enjoy the time that you get, and hopefully you can enjoy some of that radio time with your son as well. Next, we have Atlanta 900. Keith in Smyrna was a YouTube check-in. These are all YouTube check-ins coming up. Rome 90 Thomas in Cave Springs is a YouTube check-in. WRYQ 727. Is that Micah? Miko?
Miko?
Miko is a guest from Central New York checking in on YouTube. And we have WRNB 563. I bet I can get this name right. I believe that is Mike. Is a guest check-in from, is that? Harrelson, Georgia.
Yep.
All right. And we have Gainesville 55, Bobby in Gainesville. YouTube check-in. Noonan 68, Joseph in Moreland is a YouTube check-in. Atlanta 499, Philip in Ackworth is a YouTube check-in. Also Ackworth, we have Atlanta 770, James, YouTube check-in. That is the end of our roster, and against my better judgment, we're going to take one more call, one round of late check-ins from any repeater anywhere. Also, the floor is open for any questions or comments. Net Control standing by.
This is WSCC 345, Noonan 345 with a late check-in mobile, and I'll be in and out. Tim in Sonoy.
This is Roosevelt 80 with a comment, please.
All right. Eric, I don't know that I want to take your comment. I don't think you're going to have anything worthwhile to say. I'm not sure how to play this because his last remarks were a little bit. Yeah.
This is Atlanta 1140 WROV 544.
Not
Troy
productive.
in Covington, and I'm checking in and have a comment.
Okay.
WSBW 497, Robert in Ringo, Georgia. In and out.
407, is that what you heard?
I believe so. I need to double check?
If you want to. Oh, so close.
You were so close. Usually it's the letters we mix up.
Right.
SCE397.
This is WRXV 696, Dallas 64. Josh and Dallas, check me in and check me out, please. Thank you.
$395.
Your guest was in and out.
He was in and out?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Net Control is going to acknowledge we have Noonan 345, Timothy in Sonoya is in and out. I have Atlanta 1140, Troy in Covington is in tonight with a comment. We have WSBW 497, Robert in Ringgold is in and out. And we have two more YouTube check-ins. We have WSCE 395, Robert in Chatsworth is in and out. Well, he's a YouTube check-in, so he's got to be in and out. And we have WRXV 696, Dallas 64, Josh in Dallas. Didn't I hear him check in on the air?
Maybe.
Says he's a YouTube check-in.
Maybe
I think I heard him check in
He
on
did,
the
I
air.
think.
Yeah. All right.
I goofed that YouTube one.
I think we got it right now.
We'll give you a pass out of 112 check-ins. You can mess one up.
All right, and that's what we have at this time. So with that, I'm going to go right back to Atlanta 1140, Troy in Covington. Troy, did you have any questions or comments for the net? We're talking about radio etiquette tonight.
Yes, thank you, Net Control. Hey, I just had a comment on radio, trying to do radio checks. I think they're very important because, people get new equipment, and myself, I just got a new radio the other day, and I've done a radio check, and, everybody's always very responsive. But one comment that I wanted to add was when you're saying your call signs is to always slow down and, say your call sign where people can understand the numbers and the letters. And that was my comment. I appreciate it.
Well, that's a great point, Troy, and I would say yes. If you're installing new equipment and you want to come on the air and get a check for how that equipment is performing, that's the appropriate thing to do. If you're unsure that you've programmed the radio correctly and you want to know whether or not you're hitting a repeater, a radio check might be the way to do that. But these are things that we do periodically, and so if you've made a dozen radio checks in a day or a couple of dozen radio checks in a week, that becomes abusive, and it's just too much. And that's what we're trying to address here. I don't install very many new radios through the course of a year, so a couple of radio checks are really enough. And if you had to do 3 or 4 radio checks because of your new install, as you make adjustments and make corrections to antenna placement or antenna tuning or things of that nature, I don't think anyone has any concerns with that. But it's when it's over and over and over again. And so consider this. If you've made so many radio checks that somebody wants to turn their radio off because that's all they're hearing that day, that's excessive. That's too much. And that's the behavior we're trying to address. We're not saying that you can't make a radio check. We're saying check your radio checks and be reasonable about it. And I think if we do that, there won't be any problems here. The guiding thought behind all of this is that when I see people complaining to us, telling us they're turning their radio off, we're doing something wrong. If we're driving people to turn their radios off and not participate or even monitor, that's a problem. And that's what I'm trying to address. If we behave in such a way that the content that we present is interesting and relevant and useful and helpful to one another, then there's no reason to turn a radio off. And an occasional radio check shouldn't bother anyone. It's when we abuse things of that nature. And last week was really, really abusive. So I hope that makes your point. And I gotta say that I have to agree too. Let me break. I have to agree too that when we come on the air, we need to slow the roll, and we need to present our call sign and TAC number slowly enough that if somebody's listening, they can hear all of it. Because when you speak quickly, we may not hear all the letters. How many times have we missed the letters tonight, Mike?
Oh, more, I don't even know. More than I can count.
So, time and again, we've had to go back and play back a check-in because the call sign came in so quickly, we couldn't quite get it. So it's fortunate that we have the tools to go back and do that. We have the manpower and the tools to be able to divide our attention and do these things these days. But it wasn't always like that.
So I think the point to make there is say it slow enough that if somebody was writing it down with a pen and paper, that they could get a clean copy and write every letter and number down as you speak it.
With hyphens?
If needed.
Well, that is I think a good point. Is consider that somebody out there may be keeping a log of contacts and wants to copy your TAC number and or call sign so that they can reach out to you when you finish whatever call you're making. So definitely slow down. I think Troy makes an excellent point, and that's not one we've heard yet tonight, so thanks for bringing that up. All right, so that is the end of the roster then. Well, let me go through these. We have WSCE395 Robert in Chatsworth, and we have Dallas 64 Josh in Dallas. That's the end of the roster. We have one comment from Roosevelt 80, Eric in Rockwood. Eric, go ahead with your comment.
Was Rome.
All right, I believe that Eric has dropped off the net for this evening. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close the net. I need to find that part of the page. Let's see. Here we go. This concludes the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. We had a total of how many chickens?
112 chickens.
112 tonight. How many of those were YouTube?
26.
26. So that's still a really, really good number of participation for tonight's net. So good stuff. Net Control will now be returning the repeaters back to normal use. Everyone who signed in should sign out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, comments on the YouTube videos show engagement with the video and help the channel grow. Thank you for allowing me to serve as your Net Control this evening. Good night, everyone. This is Atlanta 946 WQYR 514. My name is Justin.
And this is WRWM 344 Blue Ridge 63. My name is Mike.
And Atlanta 750 WRMR 367. My name is Jeff.
We are North Georgia GMRS Network.
And we are clear. Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.